Hello. So today I kind of want to talk about stability, but we'll get wherever we end up getting. So this is actually a really interesting conversation I had recently. Um, I was speaking to someone close to me, and we were discussing like future, and I was like, I don't really know that I want to stay here. I like traveling. I like going places. I like meeting new people. I like planting seeds wherever I go. So, um, and there was the question of stability. And I laughed because the question was put in a way that was very interesting. So, how many schools did you go to? This is a very large number, my friends. And how did that make you feel? Honestly, didn't make me feel anything. I have met so many people in my life, but when I was a child, like, it wouldn't have mattered if I stayed in one place or moved a million places. I wasn't like the other children. I didn't have a normal conversation with any child ever my entire childhood. It was never, it was completely like, it wouldn't have mattered. It really wouldn't have. So I was like, that's a moot point. Literally, moot. No reason to discuss it. Okay? However, it made me who I am. And let me explain. This is how it came to my mind. I'm a Marine brat, turned world traveler, turned transient, turned military member, and then I entered a very dark phase of my life after I left the military because I felt like I had lost the spark in my life. So after I was released from that situation, we'll just say it that way. After I was released from that situation, I was able to find myself again. And it's been a bit of a journey because like it took a lot of removing of layers. So let me explain that. When I was a child, the first layer that was put upon me was the speech. I did not speak like other children because I spent most of my time reading literature from a different era. And I learned how to read in the dictionary. So I didn't speak the same way that children spoke. I didn't learn the lexicon the same way they did. My lexicon was completely different. So I was unable to speak with other children. So the very first thing that was layered upon me was no one will ever understand you. So that very first layer that was put upon me was that no one will ever understand me. And this stayed with me for many years to the point of where like I just stopped telling people. I really did. I didn't tell anybody what was going on inside because nobody understood anyway. What was the point of just speaking to have people go, what? I mean, So that was a big part of my life. Like, I actually went to therapy for a year and a half to learn how to speak to people. That was the second condension of that layer because I felt like the only way for me to learn how to speak to people was to speak like those people. And I explained this to a friend of mine through a dream I had when I was a child, that the entire world had been eaten up by an alligator, but when they were eaten by the alligator, they popped out as birdies, and I couldn't understand them, and they couldn't understand me because I didn't speak birdie. And so when I became an adult, I tried to learn how to speak birdie, and I did for a long time. And this actually helped me because I was able to understand other people more. Because what I started to learn in psychology was behaviorism. And as I continued to be around other people, because trust me, like up until I was like 19 years old, like I didn't have a lot of people around me. When I was in high school, like my senior year, it was my seventh high school. And I had a whole bunch of people who knew me, but I didn't know but like three people because I didn't let people into my life. Um, because nobody ever understood me. So there was no point in having people in my life. And so I had been pretty much invisible, and I didn't learn how to really have interpersonal relationships. Um, and so when I became an adult and was kind of forced into that, like it was very different. Like I had no idea what to expect from interpersonal relationships, which was really difficult because again, I didn't speak the same language as the people my age. Yeah, I picked up on the slang a little bit, but for the most part, like, um, as a matter of fact, people made fun of me for years for the way that I spoke. For years. They're like, I have no fucking clue what you're saying to me. Like, okay. So, in my early 20s, like, here came the next layer. The next layer of you can't be as loud as you are because society doesn't like that. And it's like legit. Like, this legit was my coming of age, was at 19 years old, realizing everybody judged me by the way I looked, and nobody even once tried to see the absolute intelligence that was underneath. And I'd already been dealing with this for years. I'm a blonde and I had big boobs, so they just assumed I was a vapid blonde. And as a matter of fact, I played along with that for many years because that's just what I heard every day. Oh, blonde joke, blonde joke, blonde joke, blonde joke every single second. And I was called flighty and, all the time because I have a high energy. And because I have high energy, I tend to flit about like a little fairy. A tumbleweed on fire. Blowing around in the wind, just lighting things on fire, okay? So my energy is very big, and society doesn't like that. And so here comes the third one. Just, dampen that down just a little bit more because you're not going to be able to get a job. Yeah, you're not going to be able to get a job. So from 18 to 23, I was very transient. I was trying to find a challenge in life, and I couldn't find any challenges. As soon as I conquered something, I was like, oh, this is boring. Moving on. I need a puzzle. I need something that's going to give me something to be able to think about. And so I tried college. It lasted a week when I was 22 years old. And so yeah, I dropped out of all of my classes within a week, and then was like, okay, I've got no fucking discipline. Time to join the military. So now I want you to understand that in my younger years, like up until I was 18 years old, I was very disciplined in many areas of my life, except for like one or two things. And one of those things was I was not very tidy whatsoever at all. Like, and if you guys ever like see my house now, it's completely different. Like I have barely anything. There's nothing out of place, like except for like where the children are. That drives me crazy. But here I am in my space, and my space is completely organized. There isn't a single thing out of place because now I feel like I have structure in my life because of the military. So I went from being absolutely wild and carefree from like 18 to 23, trying, flitting around from place to place. What do I want to do? What do I want to do? What do I want to do? To, okay, I have to finish something. And that was exactly the reason why I joined the military, I'll be honest. Like, I was like, if I walk away from this, I'm going to prison, and I don't want to go to prison. So, yep, I'll sign my life away. Just tell me what to do for as long as I can handle it. Wow. So right before I joined the military, though, this was a really, really, really difficult time and period of my life. Like this was where the next layer of like condensing started happening, this forging, okay? And that was the fear. So from 18 to 23, I experienced quite a few romance-related traumas. Just going to say it that way. My understanding of love, actually, it started even earlier than that. My understanding of love was so twisted that it was just fear. Love equaled fear. So this was, yet again, another thing that compiled on top of me. So no one will ever understand me. Life is scary. As a matter of fact, I saw all men as wolves. That I had to, I don't want to say outwit, but all men were wolves that I had to be able to outmaneuver mentally in order to keep myself safe. Okay, so this added another, like, again, love was fear. So it was how can I keep myself safe while still experiencing that which I want to experience, because I wanted to experience love. I had not experienced that in my life. It had been a very scary, dark life, a very isolated life. Like, it was something I'd never really experienced, and so I wanted to experience it, and that's what we do, right? We chase after that which is wounded within us, and it's another thing that just got compiled on there. So like by the time I joined the military, I was a wreck. Okay, like you see the picture of me from like right before I went to the military. Like my eyes are gray, like everything around me, my entire skin is gray. I have video of me at the airport on basic training, like the day I got there. I don't look the same. Obviously, I was like 17 years younger, but like I looked like a hollow shell. So by the time I joined the military, I was a hollow shell. And everything that was inside of me just felt like it was wrong. And so by that time, like, I was like, I'm 23 years old. I everything that is me is apparently wrong for society and for love and life. And so I must get rid of all of it. This was 16 years, 8 years in the military, 8 years out of the military, before I finally woke up and realized, oh my gosh, I abandoned myself 16 years ago. Not that going into the military was a bad thing for me. No, it was one of the greatest things I ever experienced in my life. And it was absolutely one of the most challenging things I ever experienced in my life. And it was absolute bliss the entire time I was there. Outside of my work was a problem. Inside of my work was beautiful. I loved it. Absolutely. Everything USAF. Go! Woo! They called me Air Force Barbie for a reason. Okay, so I was, for any of those of you who know this and what this means, I was true blue. Hardcore, every single order, every single rule, every single line, every single one of it. I followed the line. I walked the line. The line was my life. Outside of the military, my life was absolutely different. There was no control whatsoever at all. Outside of uniform, I was absolutely chaos. I was living a dual life of absolute order and absolute chaos. And it was the most thrilling experience of my life. Now, that was the breaking open of the feeling of polarity. That which is opposite draws me in. I had such a hard time in my life when I had no structure or order, but I hated the structure and order at the same time. Because I knew I needed it, I didn't want it. Which is exactly why I had to learn how to adapt, right? So as we continue to go through life, we learn how to adapt to that which is us. So when I realized that the stability I required was not in my outside world, that's when my life started to change. And that is what's happened in this last year of my life. Thank goodness. So, almost exactly 8 years after I retired, it was about 2 weeks before, I had an eye opening event that I'm looking back now and I see it differently. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, like I say all the time. But like when you first encounter something that you've never encountered before, it's confusing, right? You don't have any understanding of what the hell am I feeling. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't logically make sense. But I can go back and see every single thing now, 5 years later. Yes, 5 years later. In 2020, I lost my second husband. 4 months later, I opened myself up to something I'd never opened myself up before. And that started a snowball effect that led to one thing opening and then another thing opening and then another thing opening and just one thing right after the other. For example, in August of 2020, I opened myself up to the divine. And then in September, I made the decision to go back to school and get my degree in psychology again. And then that following year, like I graduated and I'd received my bachelor's degree and I started a new career with a whole new trajectory based solely on that catalyst in August of 2020. And that led to the next catalyst, which was shit, therapy's incomplete. There's something missing here, which led to my second awakening, which I thought was my first, but turns out was my second, which led to me going into doing coaching, which made me go, oh God, that's terrible. I don't like that. That's horrible. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And so then I backtracked from that and then went and realigned on a new path. And that opened up to last year. And last year was legit like the most confusing time of my life. It was hard for me to understand what I was understanding because when you start to see the light, it doesn't shine on everything at once, right? So March of this year, I did a video. It's not on this channel, but I did a video about the solar flashes. And this started like really ramping up this year. It's the end of the solar cycle, and so it's like, active time, right? So and it started becoming really, really active in January. And so I did a video about like these events, these solar events, the eclipses, the full moon energies, all of it like started culminating and started actually like I started feeling these things that I'd never felt before because I hadn't been open to them. And so in March of 2025, I did a video about, when you're sitting there one night and then suddenly like the solar flare happens. But this is metaphorical, of course, and analogous. You're sitting there in this dark area and you didn't even realize it was really dark because you have all this false light around you, right? And then suddenly this huge flash of light, which is like the solar flare, you're like, whoa, what the fuck was that? And why did I see a fence around me? Like, I'm fucking trapped. But where's the wall? Okay, and now you have this flashlight and you're like trying to find the way out, but you've just got a flashlight, okay? And then somebody else comes into my life and pulls that flashlight back and they're like, hey, you're not looking at it from a very wide perspective, you're looking at it from a very narrow approach, which is why I am such a proponent of understanding perspectives, right? Because just because I'm shining the light on the same exact wall that you're looking at doesn't mean we're looking at the exact same thing. And so when I offer you my perspective and you offer me your perspective, that gives us a different vantage point, right? Now we're looking both ways down the wall. Both of us. Okay. Now I see. Is there a way up? Is there a way down? Is there another wall? Let's walk the wall. Okay? And this is when we start to meet the people that actually speak our language, right? So like I said, like I didn't speak Birdie and I couldn't understand Birdie. And even though I was speaking Birdie for many years, like no one who, spoke human or English was out there listening to me because I was only speaking Birdie. And so now that I opened up and I started saying, hey, maybe I should stick to my own lexicon, the lexicon that built the person that I am. And I started to explore these topics that I was always, afraid to explore because they were taboo. And then the more I started talking, guess what? I found other people. And it's even more amazing because one of my dearest friends, who I consider a sister, she and I didn't speak the same language when we first started hanging out. We're talking on video. Like, we didn't speak the same language at all. But I felt her, she felt me. I could express to her what I was feeling, and it didn't matter whether she understood the words that were coming out of my mouth. She understood what I was giving to her. And honestly, most of the time I was like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. I think you're a wonderful person. And she's like, oh, you're so wonderful. Thank you. So, and then eventually, like, the language barrier started to dissipate. She started to learn English. And she started to learn English because she enjoyed listening to me. And I enjoyed listening to her. And we enjoyed experiencing two really, really, really different lives. Because she lives on the other side of the world and I'm an American. So we don't have anything at all that is the same in our lives. And so I get to see her world and she gets to see mine. This is a whole new perspective. Now I got someone on the other side of that fence over there looking with their flashlight like, hey, maybe I got a fence line over here that's got a wall or a gate on it. Okay? And then enter two more friends into my life, and now they got two other sides. And we're all searching the walls together. Because I finally allowed myself to be me without all of these different layers that I've been putting on top of myself over the years. I didn't even get to the point where then I got married. I was 27 when I got married, or 26 when I got married the first time, 28 when I got married the second time. Yes. I wasn't even divorced a year before I got married a second time. And the funny thing is I didn't even like marriage. I don't know. It was something I had to experience. It was something I had to do. And then it ended up giving me one of the hardest and greatest lessons of my life. And it was the major catalyst for everything that changed in the last 5 years. It was the final straw, the final bit of carbon that wrapped itself around my heart. And the fire that raged within my heart was so fierce, and it would not burn out, that it created a diamond. When the diamond finally took hold, it cracked every single little bit of the carbon that was around my heart. Every single little bit of it. I do not have a normal story. Nothing about my life has ever been normal. Nothing. I've moved 41 times. I was retired at 31 and widowed by 35. Like, I'm not normal. I have experienced more in my 40 years than most people experience their entire lives. And I am grateful for that. Nothing has been normal. But every single thing that has happened has been necessary to allow me to return to that which was buried before it ever even had a chance to bloom. And now that it's blooming, holy hell. I want you to see this. 41 moves in my life did not create a stable outside environment. 3 marriages did not create a stable love environment. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how many friends have come in and out of my life over the years. Some of them I only talk to once a year. Some of them I talk to less. Some of them I talk to all the time. Some of them I don't talk to at all. Every single person who came in and out of my life, every home I've lived in, every city I've visited, moved to, lived in, spent 3-4 weeks in, however long I was before I decided to ditch town, whatever it was, regardless of how long I've been anywhere, the only place that has ever been stable was inside of that carbon, which was my heart. Regardless of whether or not anybody else saw that stability, I see it. That fire glowed for many years without anyone tending to it. That fire continued to rage year after year after year. Hopeful and faithful that one day, that love, that fire that was within me would come to something. And it did. It did. It came to the most amazing relationship I've ever had with the divine. And I'm very glad about that. I have been I don't want to say I've been searching for that connection to God for my whole life, but I've had that connection to God for my whole life. I've always just held on to that. Nothing else was stable in my life except for my love for the divine. That's it. It never went anywhere, and it never will, because it's the only love I've ever felt my whole life that has been consistent. Never made me feel bad for not being where I needed to be. Never made me feel bad for being the way I was. It was always, you're wonderful, even if I heard it from no one else. That's stability. Not a stable home. Because your home could literally get blown away tomorrow. And if it does, where's your stability? So that was a really long-winded way of saying I never planted roots because I never found a garden worth sowing my seeds in. But that doesn't mean that garden's not out there. Maybe it is. But if I was going to plant any seeds, it'd be dandelions. Bye, guys.